All right, we're on the air.
We're on the air.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So it is Wednesday, May 8th, and we are with the Thought Provokers. This is our little group that we have that we meet every Wednesday. And we're just going to talk about epigenetics and probably other random things as well. Just as we go on, let me know what types you think that the three of them are. There's two people off camera right now, but yeah.
We're the same one. Yeah. I forgot we're the same one.
Yeah. So where do you guys want to start? I think we just should have like an organic conversation and then think about the fact that we're being recorded.
So don't just stare right in the camera the entire time.
Yeah, rather than
just.
Yeah, so at any time, if you guys have any questions, let me know in the chat. Oh, wow, we have 10 people watching so far.
Wait, so
10 people are watching
it's
at this
behind,
time.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I have this up, because so the
That's
chats, yeah, I have it so the chat's right here, and then this is what they're seeing right now. So, yeah.
So there's a lag.
I think you mentioned the definition of epigenetics.
Probably
That might be good for them to know.
Yeah, so this is just stuff that I researched, but epigenetics is basically above genetics or on top of genetics. I feel like Jeff actually would probably give a really good synopsis of it. But basically, for years, up until I don't know when, do you know when epigenetics became part of a thing?
I think it was, people kind of knew about it, but
But
it
it
wasn't
wasn't,
really studied until
yeah.
the 80s.
Oh.
Hey!
Oh wow, you're here. Okay, wow, we have another INFJ. Come on in if you want to.
Gave it away.
We're on my channel right now. Oh, okay, sorry. You guys know that there's one other INFJ besides myself. Okay, well, we are very much squished now. Right. So we have a good group now.
Yeah.
But
Welcome.
Yes, man, it's been a while.
yeah, I'm excited that you're here.
I know.
It has been a while. Okay, so yeah, so basically epigenetics is kind of a newer thing because people were taught, like I know you were taught this, my dad, we were taught this. Basically, the central dogma, basically, of if you're whatever DNA you were born with, that's basically the genetic code in which you're going to live your life, and there's not really much changing that. But what they found with epigenetics is the protein that DNA creates is dependent on the environment and other factors. So basically, do you have anything else to add to that?
So I was trying to get some sort of identification on it. They talk about methyl groups, and methyl groups attaching to the DNA, and that will either cause it to the DNA gene to express or to be repressed. And so those methyl group attachments are what's controlling the replication of the DNA and the proteins. Not the RNA.
What we would be taught is expressivity or variability in how a genotype is expressed as a phenotype, and this gives some explanation of how that might happen sometimes.
Would you like to do you want me to angle the camera so that?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, so that.
I'm fine.
Okay, you're good.
We'll see what they're saying. Do they want to see us or?
Let's see what you guys think. What is it? Okay, can you actually click
They're
on
okay.
it?
Just
Can you read the chat?
But that whole methylation of the DNA is what causes our cells to differentiate. Which I didn't realize that.
No, this is not. This is a meetup.
So
this is
the methylation.
we're called the Thought
your
Provokers.
cells is what creates liver cells, heart cells.
Hey Sarah. Hey Jack. Hey Faye.
Because every cell has the
Hey,
same
what does that say?
We would start out.
But it's the
Betty.
methylation of that DNA that creates the different types of cells.
But yeah, so if you guys have any questions or if you want to see
As a function, that's methylation. It's like
who was
I've
talking
always
earlier
thought about,
that I was the guy right here
antibiotics or
who
biotics.
was talking
You have
is
probiotics,
actually
you have bad
an anesthesiologist. anesthesiologist, so
The lab
he
audits would take advantage of
obviously
the system as
studied
it's designed to be
this
good.
kind of stuff,
by
but more on the
attaching
traditional side of DNA.
the same pathway
So that's
that we utilize. For
But yeah, hopefully you guys can hear us.
And
Not
so
sure
that's
if
the
you
same
guys can
thing
hear.
that this methylation stuff will do in
Yeah,
expressing
just keep on.
genes. So it's a normal process where a methylation is creating different cells. So that same methylation process is being co-opted somehow to change of the normal strain structure. That all is fascinating.
He's talking about the differentiation from a fertilized egg to our conjugated body.
Do you want to kind of talk about the study you were talking about with the mice?
You know as much as I do.
Well, I didn't actually watch that. I watched a different thing.
Well, I watched two different ones, two different inherited trauma, or inheritability of traits. And one of them was a study of rats. I think it was male rats, and they were exposed to an ethylene compound that is normally in fruit. So grapes and bananas and maybe oranges. I don't know exactly which one it is. But as they smelled this, they shocked the rats, and the rats developed an aversion to the smell of ripening fruit. That particular aversion was inherited not only by the succeeding generation, then the generation after that, who had had no exposure to that shock therapy. So they inherited that aversion from the generation that was shocked and developed an aversion with no exposure prior or learned behavior. Now that was fascinating.
That is awesome.
Now, so that then speculates that when sperm and egg are made, which are half of our DNA, right? They're split to 21 pairs, so that they come together. That actually those methylated groups actually are split off as well. So those methylated groups travel with the split DNA, and up to the point where they started studying epigenetics, they just thought that it cleaned itself when it split. So the methylated groups did not replicate in the splitting, but now they're thinking now that those methylated groups carry themselves with the DNA.
So if we start shocking people when they go eat fast food, we can kind of work our way out of all the
Build the
crap.
population.
Here's something else that I was reading a meme the other day, and it was about a guy who was in school, high school, and a girl walked around school with a clicker, and whenever she laughed or found something funny, she would click. And so what she was doing, she was creating a Pavlov response to the clicker to excite happiness in her life. So whenever she was depressed, she would just start clicking the clicker to be happy. That was funny. So he didn't realize it until later on when he thought back about her walking around with a clicker, but she only did it when she was laughing or smiling. She would click it. So she would always have the clicker when she was getting upset or depressed to enliven her mood, I guess by triggering some sort of endorphin release.
She's got two depressed, resisted by the pyramid.
But that's the same thing with cell phones and the notification sound, is they can bring, depression or
The quacker
happiness.
or whatever.
Depending on, your relationship with the phone and who you talk to on there.
Which the reason we're addicted to phones probably that Pavlov response has been developed quickly.
Yeah, it's like a dopamine.
Right.
I have a question. Say for instance, with the learned traits, say for instance, like alcoholism. If say for instance, my mom was an alcoholic, and then that trait was passed down to me, and I changed my environment and changed that habit. Would that trait still be there when I have my kid? Do you think so?
Well, that's what we were talking about
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah.
With fights and stuff.
Well, I think Lee was talking about gene expression, but there's gene susceptibility, and now we're talking about methylated gene suppression or expression as a creating susceptibility. But the baseline DNA has a susceptibility to itself
Okay.
to certain genes. And then the methylation means the environmental. So you have nature and nurture. Nature being the DNA, and the nurture being the environment's exposure.
They used to think with like DNA, they used to think that nature or DNA was the end all be all. Like that was what basically if you have that DNA, that's what you're gonna like that's how you're gonna be expressed. But what they found with epigenetics or like that proteins can be so easily manipulated into different shapes. Basically, so if your mom was an alcoholic and you had that gene to be exposed to be like you were more prone to be an alcoholic, you could actually change your behavior and change your lifestyle, and over time that would change your genetic, basically how it would be transferred to your offspring. So it actually would change.
Okay.
Where that's what they hypothesize.
It might.
Yeah, and maybe it would change for maybe let's say you have like 5 kids and maybe some of your kids have this tendency, but that can also be changed with them. Just like if your family was overweight. I mean, I even found myself saying this where like if someone's like considered like fat or skinny or whatever, saying, oh, it's in your genetics, it's in your DNA. It is in a way, but you can change it. And for example, you're on the keto diet, just calling you out. And that can change your. I mean, you've already seen the change in your body, and if you keep that up, used to say your children.
My dad's had a triple bypass, and both my parents are overweight. My mom's on her 2nd knee surgery, so I mean, I have everything against me, really. But then I'm changing my diet, I'm fasting every day, I'm walking, exercising, doing something to improve my life, which is just a part of personal development in general. You know, it goes a long way, you know, past you and your kids, you know. But like they were saying about environmental is, you know, if your parents are overweight, chances are you're eating the same food they're eating when you're living with them. So you're set up that way to like them certain foods. So if you don't come to yourself and say, hey, this isn't the right way I want to live, I need to be healthier, then you got to make that step to improve yourself.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm 6 months after the day at which my father had his coronary bypass surgery. So
Congratulations.
I don't have any signs of disease, but it's not, obviously it's not 100%, but
Yeah.
you got hope in what you're saying.
I'm not going to say anything because I'm not jinxing it.
Well, they also say like, because they like to study twins on this.
Right.
That's, I mean, twins are fascinating in their own respect, but they were talking about how environmental factors can make a twin completely different. So say you had a twin born in the U.S. versus a twin that was born in an impoverished country, or like they were just not, maybe they were even in an area that didn't allow them to grow in some way. Maybe they were in a smaller environment. The twin in the U.S. or wherever would probably grow larger than the twin that was suppressed in some way. It's interesting.
I think politics here, I mean, generations have gotten taller.
I was listening to Robert Piskowski, I think his name is, Stanford lecturer. He spoke on something similar to what you were mentioning about twins and their genes changing based on their environment. They studied 2 twins that were in that got adopted to different families, and they said both twins' genes started replicating the parents. I don't know if it falls under the same kind of topic. They said their DNA started to kind of replicate how the different families that they were around, basically.
And I think that's what Tony was saying.
So,
is based on the environment you're raised in,
Yeah.
you have propensities for certain activities or food.
Yeah.
And
But it was
that's what you're
interesting
saying.
because it's like twins, you know. It was,
Right.
Yeah, that's what he was
So even though the same people,
Yeah.
they're in
different
environments that are
environment, yeah.
drawing them in different.
Which was interesting. I thought that was interesting.
Right. I would live so we moved around a lot when I was a kid. I lived in one neighborhood where the neighbors down the street, whenever the young kids would come by their house, they would have frozen hot dogs in their house. They would give out as treats. Because that was on.
Yeah,
Now,
it's
these same people, they,
yucky.
the husband died in his chair from smoking, burned up, passed out in the chair. So, but that, frozen hot dogs is a treat. That's kind of, talking about nitrates and stuff. I mean, I know those have negative. Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, they might be better hot dogs back then than they are now. That's true.
Or worse.
Less filler. I don't know.
During the turn of the century, you might have had human parts in your hot dog.
Are you being serious?
No, I'm being serious right now.
They're still
There are books on
allowed.
this.
They're
There
still
are-
allowed up to 2% format, unidentified format.
That's very
Terrifying.
They plump when you cook them.
Well, even you should always wash your cans of soda if you're from a can or any kind, because they're stored in warehouses and rats will go.
Oh,
So that most of the cans are coated in rat. Just the left one.
That's the
my
flavor,
brother
though.
used to tell me that all the time.
And same thing with clothes. When you buy new clothes, the clothes have been sitting in warehouses. You should wash them.
What about the cans that are stocked? What about the cans that are packed in the cardboard 12 packs?
It's just roaches.
Okay.
there's no winner.
I'm not worried about that.
Something is in there.
How quickly is that little sand filigree?
I don't know.
Immediate. That's really incentive.
It is.
It's crazy. I think it's crazy that, I mean, I feel like our generation, our parents were kind of cognizant of this, but in past generations, they didn't realize what you were, if you were pregnant, what kind of behaviors could really influence your child. For example, smoking, doing drugs. Even say someone was doing drugs right now and they were not pregnant, they could pass that on to their child,
Right.
which is very
Eating
scary.
unpasteurized cheeses.
Yeah. All kinds
Which
of
is
different.
huge in here.
I mean, most every other country in the United States does things differently.
Well, and being pregnant there, I wondered, because they're not as careful about a lot of stuff. So I wondered if these actually, if their genes had, if they were capable of enduring these things, the fetuses, because their parents had always, their families had always eaten them. Because here we're cautious about all of those things. But there, they don't talk about it. So.
But they process their food differently as well.
I think that's what it is.
I think a lot of it is the healthiness of the food. And they don't buy a refrigerator full and store it for 2 weeks before they eat. Right. A lot of times they eat what they buy immediately. So there's none of this. They don't. You don't see a 30 cubic foot refrigerator in your household unless it's a really rich family. They all just have sort of daily refrigerators. They don't store a lot of food. So here, if we had an unpasteurized cheese in a refrigerator, it may be weeks before we eat. So that just gives it more time to develop its toxicity. Whereas in Europe, you pick up food that you're going to eat that evening on the way home from work. So you eat it.
It has TV in it, that probably doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But they have smaller meal portions too.
Sure. In their exposure, they don't eat as much meat, right? It's not processed as much. There's a lot more vegetables and grains, which you're going to have, except for ergot, which is what comes to depending on which trials. But now they're using ergot as therapy. It's crazy. Anyway, so smaller portions, less meat, less of the toxic stuff. But everybody's got different opinions. They're just talking about today how if you eat cheese, you're less likely to be susceptible to diabetes. But you can't eat cheese on kid.
We can,
Well, can't.
within reason.
have a block of cheese that you cut into fours.
That's
Just
right.
kidding.
That's right.
I love it with brie.
I just have three. But maybe we don't have to keep. Oh my gosh.
What did it say?
Yeah, is it obvious?
Does someone
No.
claim it?
Well, they said you guys are ENFPs.
Oh no! Already?
Yeah.
Are these people magicians? Or
Well, I did write in the
just
I
very
did write in the
steady?
title, but
That there
I think
were
they
two.
I think they did realize that you guys were.
It's like 4 words.
I know, but I think it's because, maybe it's because of that. Because you guys have been the quietest out of all of us.
I thought I was a loud person.
Well, you are, but you're being shy. Both of you guys are being shy.
I was gonna
Okay.
I'm not most proficient in this topic.
See? You guys had the same impression on this. And you guys are both people now that we're on.
Yeah.
Not my forte.
I think that
Not at all. I don't think I've ever taken a selfie.
Thomas
Really?
I
Creek
probably
Apple.
have taken
Sorry,
like my
what is it?
girlfriend's like,
Thomas
"Look at
Creek
your
Apple
radio,"
cider.
but I've
Yeah,
never
radio.
posted
Yeah. Close.
So that's doing the world a
Disservice.
injustice.
No
Yeah,
way.
a disservice.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
Could have another daily briefing.
Or is that just a normal coffee?
Oh
You
my
have as much coffee as you want.
Black.
Nice.
Black. Yeah.
Then I could do that.
It also depends on the size of the wallet.
Johnny's in debt.
So,
Oh, are you?
I said I don't.
Too much coffee.
okay,
Yeah,
I'll
too much
go
coffee,
over
yes.
this.
Well, you know, when you're a high
Would you
school
like-
student, you're always in debt. to
Would you
somebody.
like to introduce yourself and say what personality type you are?
Oh yeah, sure. Hi guys, I'm INTJ Watson, and I am an INFJ. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Tony. You guessed right. I'm an INTJ.
Hi, I'm Emily.
I'm
I'm an INFJ. Yeah.
I am Catherine. I'm
Hey, I'm Ryan. I'm an ENFP too. Who can't pronounce this word?
FP2.
And then,
It's a subtype.
Yeah.
would you like to?
So, yeah, I'm off camera. I'm Jeff. I'm an ENTJ.
And you don't know? Do you know what your
I'm
personality?
Lee, and I was not here for that session, and I took my test so long ago I don't remember what I got. It starts with I.
Oh, so let's see.
It sounds like they're gonna know what you are by the end of the
Yeah, you guys should guess. You guys should guess. You should guess Lee's type because we do not know yet.
STV.
They need more background.
You do what?
Yes.
More background.
Let me have a conversation.
Just a random guess.
Random guess.
We can talk about other stuff as well. What would you guys like us to talk about?
Are you asking us or like the people watching? Both.
So someone was saying
we're all
that
one
it looks
big
like your shirt
message.
says
Just
Dave's
handwritten.
superpowers.
That's
Social
it.
media.
Yeah.
You're wearing a brain t-shirt.
Yeah.
That could be dangerous to you.
Well,
We're
we've
provoking
dabbled.
thought. We're provoking thought.
We've done.
Hopefully not promoting.
Um,
I'm going to guess where those people Oh, Chaz is here. Well, just to say this, Taylor, we meet weekly, so even though statistically you may think that
I can watch myself.
I did have a chat about MBTI, and I would say the majority of the people that we're talking about that are not with us today, and these are the people that stayed and have been at different meetings. So.
Are you going to get the?
That slip may not work.
So did you hear about what happened this week with the reason
That slip may
I couldn't post on our Hot Provokers because I'm not a member.
What?
How are you not? It says you're a
I know.
member.
I know.
on
The only way I
and-
could post because I couldn't log on. Right. The only way I could post was resubmit membership, and then I approved myself, and I could post.
Wait, what?
Have to be a member.
You
I saw
approved?
you
You
were still
approved?
wet
I
face.
approved myself, and then I could post. It was weird.
That is very
What is
22
bizarre.
are watching this.
Oh, okay, so you already found it.
I'm already getting an ad. What kind of beer is that? First one I saw.
Here.
DJ, what kind of
Oh,
Yeah, what kind of beer is
it's
that?
Thomas Creek.
That was great.
Yeah, Red Ale.
Red Ale. That's
Yeah,
good.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that.
Oh,
I
Yeah.
don't want to be demonetized.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah.
You're definitely a member, Jeff, because I even know who your picture
Yeah,
is
because
on
I
there.
saw.
Right, but I have a great picture too now.
A different picture?
It's great. It's a great profile.
No, but I also saw you on there. As
Well, I know I am, and I'm a co-organizer, so I can approve people, but I couldn't post.
That's weird.
Right, because I couldn't. I tried 3 or 4 times to put some
Yeah, but
links
you
in
can't talk about it.
for the epigenetics.
Are you trying this
They
test
just kept
out?
saying
Right.
something is wrong. Something is wrong. And
Want me to shot
in
you?
the corner said,
Oh.
Want me to
Oh,
shine
shot
shot
me
you?
now. Right?
so,
So,
one of Emily's scholars.
She kicked you out. She's like,
Probably.
off with your head.
alright. So,
Spencer said thanks for me.
oh yeah, on Facebook. Yeah. What should we talk about? I think we could still talk about epigenetics, but if you guys want to talk about something else.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Okay, so we're talking about phenotypes. I was under the impression that phenotypes are what you can see about somebody. So,
It's also what happens from the gene, how the gene, what the gene does in real life, what the end product of the gene
I just have
is.
the volume.
are also phenotypes.
Right.
Yeah, same.
Because that's why I was wondering when they were talking about phenotypes can be affected by this. I was like, how would that work? But it must not be talking about appearance.
Oh, I learned something new. Everybody has brown eyes.
Yeah.
It's just the lack of the brown melanin that allows it to be green or blue. So the less you have, the more blue your eyes are. So people with green and hazel eyes are like they said are the Goldilocks people because they're in between not having enough and having too much.
That has to do with epigenetics.
No.
No, it's just a random time. Yeah.
Off my tangent.
I mean, maybe something on the brown gene got methylated.
Emily said we can talk about anything.
Yeah, we can talk about
Yeah.
it. I mean,
The
within
floor was
reason.
open.
I tried to tie it in.
Just to be clear with everyone, he is the only one that's drinking right now. We are all
Sober.
Yeah, we're all
That's
sober.
well.
I have
Underage.
So very good that you're sober.
Drinking water. Stay hydrated.
But his dad gave him a brew.
No.
You saying that we sound drunk,
Oh,
Emily?
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like there's only one.
No, if drunk Emily would look very different.
Oh, that's not very nice.
This is lame. Come on.
Okay.
It's because you're also happy. That's not normal. Unless you're drinking.
Really? No.
Yeah.
Well, probably to
I'm so
probably to the
bold.
people that are watching, they're like, Emily's being actually expressive with her face and like being instead of
Yeah, act your type.
yeah.
Also, since you know him for a while.
Let's just stare.
Yeah,
Just give him that stare.
that's great. He's
She's imitating an extroverted personality.
I have to save up my extroversion for these meetings. I gotta like,
You gotta
build
build
up.
It up for the
build
week.
your reservoir.
Go home.
Gotta give myself a talk in the restroom. Like, gotta get with it. Gotta talk. Dang it.
I'm good enough.
Can do it.
But someone asked, Katie actually asked, is your cognitive type inherent or is there such a thing as genetic determination? What do you guys think? I have a certain opinion about this, but I'll let you guys talk. Like, do you think your personality is nature or do you think it's...
I have to say it's nurtured.
You think it's nurture?
And the reason is because I think my personality is developed because when I was a youth in elementary school, I went to 5 different elementary schools. So I had to be able to make friends and develop my personality to a point where I could fit in as quickly as possible. And of course, then I went to a different middle school from the people I went to elementary school with, and I went to 2 high schools. So I think that just sort of pushed it over the cliff towards ENTJ.
Are you the oldest child?
I'm sure that has something to do with it too.
I think it's both.
Well,
I think it's mostly inherent, and then there's some environment. So,
Here's my head more to do the identity part.
It's kind of a toss-up between both. It depends on
Yeah.
the situation and your family life and how you're brought up. Really, like myself, for instance, I rode dirt bikes when I was like 7, so I was 18. So I spent a lot of time by myself riding, or with only a few other people. I really had only a small group of friends that I hung out with. I didn't really care to have a massive social group, and it really, even then, not knowing my personality type and why I thought differently at the time, it did the conclusion that I just didn't really care to have a big social group at all. It was draining, really, but I didn't know what it was at the time. So, and not to say my parents didn't push me to do certain things. I tried all sports at least once, and I just didn't see the point of any of it. And sometimes I still don't now. It's just, I don't know.
You were doing sport, you were doing dirt bike.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I enjoy to do, and I still have a motorcycle now, so that's the only thing I've really been passionate about that excites, all my cognitive functions all at once. So,
that's even an extreme sport
I guess you could say
to me.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not getting on with
Yeah.
those things.
I mean, nowadays with everybody, staring at their phone driving around, motorcycle,
Right.
I mean,
They just
I gotta be on point at all times,
Yeah.
or that's my
Before
life.
phones, it was
I
bad.
mean,
Now,
Yeah, I
it's
think
totally
so.
old.
just
Oh,
staying
yeah.
on a dirt bike.
Certain people in South Carolina, I feel like.
Yeah, but see, I think people try to. So I joined an ENTJ Facebook group, and the people in there are horrible. And I don't think I'm a horrible person, but
Yeah.
even the topics that they come up with.
I don't know we're listening right now.
But even
We'll
the topics
let them
about
we'll let them
Maybe I am
determine whether
horrible.
they think you're a horrible person.
Riley, not horrible. Sometimes.
Depends on the day.
It's definitely not.
Have you eaten dinner? If you're horrible, if you haven't eaten
How much homework I've done that night.
So, but yeah, they post topics that are just sort of, to me, tenuous to discuss. But I think a lot of people also need to feel like their personality profile need to fit it, to give them some sort of reason to be that. And I don't think that that's what you should look at,
Oh yeah.
because none is better than the other. They're just different. And knowing that they're different and knowing their strengths and weaknesses is the way you can develop a relationship with that other personality type better.
Yeah.
Although there's some, it's like some zodiac signs. Although the zodiac signs are not correct, you all know that. Right? They're off by a sign because of the progression of the anyway.
It's just a star thing.
Yes. So, but there are some personality types that are difficult to relate to. Most situations, it's best to avoid trying to develop a relationship with those people. And you'll find that probably with personality profile too. But there's some that you really enjoy being with, and there's some that you don't enjoy being with, or some that talk too much or take you on too many tangents.
I think
What are you describing?
whatever,
Yeah.
I think what last time I was here and we were discussing the personality type, you had mentioned that your emotional cue, like you're sensing, like you read in the room, you just kind of say stuff. I think that's what you had mentioned. Sometimes your friend has to kind of tap you,
So,
say,
yeah,
hey.
well, sometimes I.
Yeah. So maybe that's why the group is like that. Maybe because they don't really pick up cues like that, so they post anything. Maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah, that is.
You did mention that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just remember you saying that. Maybe.
It's totally invasive. It's an example of one of the topics. You're not comfortable speaking.
Oh,
No, it wasn't group sessions. You were saying maybe I
On
don't
Facebook, the forum.
no, I can look it up real quick.
Or group on Facebook. Okay.
Don't make it too bad. We don't want to get
No.
monetized.
Yeah, it's not that.
We
Yeah,
gotta get you that
yeah.
75
Yeah,
cents
I
in this
think
video.
so too. It is really difficult to find a topic kind of offend. You know what I mean? So I guess that's why.
Well, it's not so much that that I think that what their topics are offensive, but
Small-minded.
they're not something that I would talk about.
So, yeah.
Do they talk to each other? Or people comment on those things?
So yeah, I won't be able. So and so there's like 3,000, 12,000 members in this group that are ENTJ. So that's a pretty big group, right? And you know, I'll never tell you names or anything like that. But so this is a meme. It's a funny meme, but when your INFJ friend has to sell all the sports crystals to pay his gas bill,
Oh, that's funny.
right? Just stuff like that.
I mean, crystals are so
Okay.
expensive. Yeah. Crystals are expensive. I mean, I haven't bought crystals.
As
like
long as you
that.
get the quality stuff.
No, but yeah, seriously, like these little crystals are like $30, or like you'll get like a crystal for like $100. I'm like,
Yeah, that's how my brother.
What are they?
people think that.
mood
I mean,
things.
people think that they have healing ability.
Or
I mean,
holds
it
their
helps with the
energy,
vibration,
stuff like that,
man.
right?
and then some of them just have them for like the aesthetic qualities.
They do
Will
look
they
nice.
methylate your cytosine? That's my question.
Well,
I think there's a crystal shop.
Okay.
it's,
Oh yeah, there is. And I saw like their big crystals are like thousands of dollars.
oh, I love crystals too.
Mhm.
I don't know if I.
I'm not super.
So we did have a question for you, Jeff. What personalities, and you may not know like the actual personality type, but what personalities do you not get along with? Generally, like what kind of personality traits do you not?
The personality I don't get along with right now is a narcissist. I really have a struggle with this, just because they don't look outside of their own little filter. Try to embrace other people's issues, or just try to look from a different perspective. But they'll never be able to.
INTJs and INFJs can come off that way as well if they're unhealthy, and depending on the situation, if they're very knowledgeable in a certain case. Like if you came into my work and started talking about my programming,
Yeah.
I'd probably switch over to be like, "Hey, listen here, pal.
Well, yeah.
I got this down pat."
And so, yeah, and we were talking about this earlier. Is you are you able to understand where that person's coming from?
Yes.
Are they coming from a malicious perspective? If so, most people should be justified in whatever they say if someone's being malicious to you. But if they're not trying to, if they're trying to find common ground, and they just don't understand what they're saying, you know, that's when you really need to open up and say, okay, let me explain to you what you're trying to comprehend that you don't comprehend.
Yeah.
And that's hard to, when you're being criticized or judged in some way, or you perceive you're being criticized or judged, it's hard to not be defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's everybody. It's not just a particular person. Me, I have a tendency to apologize a lot. I'm going to take ownership of my errors. As I matured when I was younger, I'd be sort of like, F you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway. And that's just because I lacked maturity and understanding of how to relate to people. It's that whole invincible youth sort of.
Well, I don't think everybody's like that because I can't. I don't think I was really like that. I think I've gotten meaner over the years. Like I've had, especially lately, I've had to be meaner on YouTube and online. Like for example, you know this. I got rid of 1,400 people on my Facebook.
Including me.
Yeah, you were one of the people that you just got rid of a ton of people.
We had to beg to get back on.
Yeah, well, you're not on Facebook.
One of these things.
One of these days we'll be friends. But I personally think with personality, I think it's more of a nature thing. But I do think cognitively people develop in a certain way, and I think nature, going into our discussion, kind of what you were saying, how your environment can affect you, and how maybe your parents. So if you grow up in a certain environment, say as an ENTJ, if your parents are very feeler, like let's say some type of feeler type, or value different functions than you do, then almost by default, you're going to be kind of, I mean, unless you're really rebelling against it, you're going to be kind of driven to act a certain way, even though that's maybe not your natural tendency. And as you develop, so for example, as an ENTJ, your primary function is extroverted thinking. So that's what you're like most, if we want to say that it is nature, that's what you're strongest at. And then when you get a little bit older, let's say closer to your teenagehood, going into like college age, you're developing introverted intuition, so which is your second function. Which you have all those functions, but you're developing them more, so they're expressed in certain ways. And I think even with age, personalities develop, and you're gonna see, just like it kind of goes into epigenetics. Even though this is all about personality, you can have two INFJs or two ENFPs that have completely different lifestyles or different things that happen to them, different genders.
Right.
And because of the different environments and because of the different, like let's say one of us was abused as INFJs, that would make us maybe look differently to other people.
Well, you'd be more guarded.
Yes.
Honestly, any kind of trauma is going to cause you to reflect on things.
I mean, personally, which I'm not going to go into too much because I actually have never really talked about this on my channel, but I was verbally abused as a child by someone that was very close to me. Like I was in an environment where I was constantly being verbally abused, so I became even more introverted and less expressive. Like I was always like as a child, I was always introverted, but I was more like loving, like wanting to hug people, really like wanting to interact with people in a more introverted way. I was still timid, but because I was kind of told that I was stupid or told that I was like doing something wrong all the time, I like kind of went back into my shell. And it wasn't until I got older that I was able to really come out of that.
It's interesting. I had a really similar. It wasn't familial. It was social, but I had a very similar.
Yeah, I was bullied in middle school
Yeah,
as well,
me too.
which is another factor. And I think that's interesting. Because
Well,
you can have.
And I was going to say, based on what you're saying, what someone said to me one time, I heard, was broken people break other people. So until they're healed, they're going to continue on
The
that
cycle,
path,
yeah.
and that trauma is going to be perpetuated to
Yeah.
other people because they haven't learned to deal with their trauma. And so we talk about epigenetics, inheriting trauma, but you can also, through your environment, get it from people, because, or even an animal that's been abused that attacks you, and all of a sudden now you stay away from animals like that because you were attacked by them, was abused, right? Because that animal doesn't know. And people are the same way. If they've been abused physically, emotionally, verbally, that they're going to break other people until they can fix themselves. The hardest thing for me to realize with people is it doesn't matter their socioeconomic status or their education level. If they're broken, they're broken. And until they can come to terms with that, even if they're a doctor, they'll still break other people.
But I think too, and this is just my own personal experience, you need to have people around you who are willing to love you anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? To me, in order to heal. And I don't know, maybe you can go sit in a therapy office and end up in the same place. But for me, I needed to have people who were willing to just kind of sit with me.
Right, but you have to realize that they're willing and not just push them away.
Right.
Because a lot of people
it's definitely a dance. I mean, it's absolutely a mutual.
Cost less.
I'll
Oh, go ahead.
I would second that based on what you said. With my experience, when I was in Jamaica, my mom wasn't really around like that. So when my uncle and aunt adopted me, I didn't. She would like hug me all the time, which I thought was weird. Because we didn't grow up. I grew up in a home with like just all my sisters and then a stepdad. So I would go to school, come home, There was nobody to vent to or anything like. So you were just by yourself. You go to school, you eat, you come home, you're by yourself. So there wasn't any like hugging and stuff like that. So when I came here, she did it for like, I came here when I was 16, 17. So she did it from then, like 2010 till now, you know? And it like just dawned upon me like a couple of years ago, like she was talking to me, she's like, you know, you're afraid of love. And I'm like, what do you mean? You know, she's like, yeah, you reject it. And I think now, you know, as I get older, but yes, as far as somebody willing to, because she said it would affect her. She kept doing it. She kept doing it until I finally came around. You know, it became, you know, normal now for me to be more accepting of, affection. Yeah.
It takes a strong
Yeah.
person to be willing to.
Yeah. But yeah,
I guess.
it was interesting.
Well, this is kind of a silly thing, but like people always ask me, anybody that's met my cats, which I know we have cats as well. I mean, you guys, I don't know why I'm with you guys.
We have
I'm with your
cats.
family now.
Yeah.
But like my cats, people are always like so amazed when they meet my cats, how they're so trusting, and I'm so able to like literally spin them over, and people are like, "What are you?" But I just kind of intuitively knew or something, especially with my cat Pumpkin. I adopted him when I was 9, and I just knew that I didn't want him to be like other cats. I didn't want him to be the stereotypical cat. I wanted to be able to treat him almost like a dog, but even more so, like him to trust me, him to be kind, him to be like, and I'm not saying, I think his personality is a certain way. Like I do think nature, like his personality is a sweet personality, but at the same time, or disposition, I think all personalities can be sweet, but his disposition is sweet. But I also added to it by like, I would throw him up in the air and catch him, or like, or like scream,
That's like a
like
shot.
I mean, make some like kind of do like weird noises and like just kind of scare, like intentionally scare him, but also show him that it was okay. Like there's no reason to be afraid of me. And this was like at 9 years old. I was training my cat. I got him to do tricks. I would have him hug me, and like he would jump up, hug me, and give me kisses on either side. And then when I adopted my cat Fleur from a kill shelter, which is kind of interesting because she was with another kitten that was her sister. They were very different already. You could tell that Fleur was very timid, and she was sitting in the cat litter box while the other sister was running around, kind of scratching people. So we got Fleur, and I also did the same thing with Fleur, where I just made her trust me. And eventually, they both turned into these cats that are extremely trusting of people. Fleur has claws. She's never tried to scratch me. They don't bite me. They don't hiss at me. You can literally do whatever, within reason, do whatever you want to these cats. Like, obviously not bad things.
Wear him as a shawl.
Yeah, I did. I literally did. And anybody that watches my Instagram sees this stuff, but I've joked about like making a video about how to train your cats, but I really do think I'm actually training my cats to kind of have this disposition. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought that was interesting.
You were talking about how you have to be mean on social media sometimes.
Is it mean or assertive?
There you go.
Direct.
I don't know, but I think as I age, as I'm mature, I'm looking for realness in people. You know, I don't want a fake hug. Give me a fake hug. No,
Oh, yeah.
it's not worth it. If you give me a real hug, I'll hug you. You know, tell me what you want, or don't say anything. Well, I'm not looking for someone who's not being genuine. I don't have time for that. Just move on, go troll somebody else. You know, I want genuine. That's what I'm doing. And every time I've spent time with Lee, we have genuine conversations. And that's what was surprising to see here, which I'm excited. Excited to hear about this.
That was fun to see you.
Yeah. We've had dinner a couple times.
Yeah, I did.
What's that?
The chimed in.
Yeah.
Light bulb.
There's so sorry.
Oh, you're good. Thank you.
Everything else good over here? Can I also get a coffee? Yes, also just a regular.
I can't. It's like,
Oh, I can.
Jack,
I could have coffee right now and just go back.
I mean, I stayed up last night, finished watching True Detective. I did watch Making. I read something about Making a Murder. Well, you know, the thing about this is they're trying to find. This is just what I was
Thank you.
in what I was reading. They're trying to find like the commonalities between mass murderers, right? And they're like the 12 most popular jobs for a mass murderer. I'm like,
Cheers.
so they don't have a selective. They don't have one
Their
job.
personality type.
Yeah.
It's more likely to be a serial killer and a politician.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot.
So how do they know their careers?
Well, the ones that they know, right? And then they were talking about the ones who are highly educated have this kind of job. The ones who are semi-skilled have this kind of job. The ones who are regular general laborer have. And I'm like, so you're not telling me anything specific.
Right.
No, I think he's trying to give you a stigma
The
against
ones
the
with geniuses we never caught.
The one thing that they have in common typically is they're white males.
Yeah.
Well, I do
He's
think
scared of those
that
guys.
there are, certain privileges,
That's why I'm
and
not.
some people do feel. I mean, I think some people use their privilege as a way of doing this, whereas certain other people know that they already are targeted, so they would.
Scapegoat.
They would, yeah.
Wait, what? The murderers targeted or
So no, targeted. So like, let's say, I don't know, an Asian male versus Jeff.
What,
Are you talking
UFC?
about an Asian male like Pol Pot? Or are you talking about like in me, Pol Pot and me? Because he was one of the most notorious
Oh,
mass
really?
murderers.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true. But
Well,
I think if you watch the crime
I'm
show,
saying-
they pretty much profile the white guys for the
Yeah.
mass murderer things.
It's true. And
Well,
if
it's
white
because
women-
it's
Right.
Western centric. It's
That's true.
it's United States and England typically. It's all Western cultures. Because I'm sure you can go to Asia and Russia, and they're just as bad people or anything. Right.
Well,
And-
they
and-
probably have more just because there's more Asians in the world today.
And I'm sure there's plenty of examples of Muslims or Arabs, or they're probably Jewish murderers. We just don't know. Because we're not put in our media from that.
Well, and they a lot of times have it a lot more rough than we do. So there's different types
Yes.
of genocide that are going on, or just women being shot in the street, like that, and that's very unfortunately kind of
Right.
and not there.
I mean, if you think about the drug cartels in Mexico, I'm sure that there's one person in a drug cartel who's their go-to guy, killing people. Yeah, he would be a mass murderer. He may not fit white Anglo-Saxon Protestant American profile necessarily.
They did a documentary on that. I think they interviewed somebody like that over there. That all he did was just a hitman. They sent him the name, the picture, and he goes on a motorcycle, pulls up and shoots him in the head and rides off. And they asked him point blank, "Do you like killing people?" He's like, "Well, if I don't kill people, they're going to kill me. So I don't have a choice." And he actually got pretty emotional about it. You know, when they interviewed him. Obviously, they didn't show his face, but you could tell that he's getting pretty emotional about
Well,
it.
yeah, and they're boy soldiers in Africa. They don't know anything other than killing. So,
So Riley, or Bernie Brown,
Yeah. that's the
would
first
you
time.
like to kind of describe how your life is as a young ENFP? Because you are the youth of this group. Bernie for youth.
I don't know where to start really.
You can just talk about yourself.
All right, so it all started 17 years ago.
I started 17.
Hey guys, I gotta go.
Yeah.
10 months.
I don't know if it's much different than really millennials in a sense. It's just that, still in high school, Gen Z. They're pretty similar to millennials in general. Yeah, Zoomer. Call it. I don't know. It's not really much difference, really. Except more used to technology and started off with more of it.
Except he can't learn software program.
Okay, that's because we don't learn anything in school.
Oh my gosh. Just click next and agree.
Yeah. Like, oh, here's Google Drive. Can you do something else? No, Google Drive. That's it. That's all we learn.
That's crazy. Like even like Sims, like you know the game Sims.
Yeah.
Like
Just play it.
the older version, you had to like take. It used to be like hours that you had to upload the software. It took hours. You had to go through all these steps and stuff. Now they don't do that.
I remember Sim City.
I remember
The original.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yes.
I actually have thought about which is down the line, the 16 types on the Oregon Trail. I thought that would be like a really stupid but funny.
Just put dysentery for all of them.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, that would be it. What I did was
really
I bought
would.
all the ammo and I shot like so much bison I couldn't carry them all. I was just wasteful, just doof 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 doof, just shooting everywhere.
those ones.
All the ash water.
That was really good.
Everything all died.
Honestly, they're
God.
fucking
They don't just boil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would actually like
Settlers
it.
of Catan.
I've heard it's fun. Settlers of Catan is my favorite game, and I have the German version because it's the best.
We were playing it on
It's so
the
called
iPad.
Settlers of Catan.
Play like a
no,
short-
Settlers
short
of
game.
Catan is a German game.
What's the difference between the German and
It's cheaper.
I thought that was
Katan's
a weapon
cheap.
that
Like
we
the
never
German
had.
version's
Yeah, that's
cheaper.
no
These
thinking.
girls,
Like it's like
Yeah, yeah.
$25.
Katanas?
Whereas like
For
the
somebody
and
did.
the pieces are more detailed, and the cards are prettier.
But it's like the core like,
game's
parts
not
of the
different.
game.
It's just better.
Like it's still
It's-
like, you know,
It's just a better game, and I don't like the way the American version is.
So just the aesthetic.
So is this a board?
Kind of,
Yes.
but also the quality of it.
All of it. I
Yeah,
use
some more
technology.
games.
You're on it.
So we should do a game.
Oh
We should
my
really should. That would be
gosh!
super
We
fun.
could play Mexican German.
Do you see what?
Yeah, I saw. Wait, did I test something else?
This is okay. Riley is a child. He is a minor. No, he will not do that.
No.
We need to block this comment
Yeah.
because that is a child. Riley is a
Oh my
youth.
god, it's Settlers of Catan is $50.
Yeah, and in Germany it's $25 or something.
Oh, 25.
I don't know, but Riley's. You can say that to other people, but
It's like-
Riley's.
Actually,
In-
probably shouldn't say it at all.
Yeah, no,
No,
oh
probably-
yeah,
you
don't
say-
say that. Yeah,
Is it
I mean,
about his
that's fine.
political views or?
No, you said Bernie Rose show feet. That's it.
People do stuff like that
That's
to me.
just-
It's just Riley's a child. Like, I mean,
Yeah, mine.
So
Agreed.
did you see the episode of Black Mirror when they had the implants and they could like block out somebody if they? That's pretty crazy.
no, I have not. What is that?
Black Mirror
Social ratings?
Not just that, but if someone offended you, you could like block them out and they would be like pixelated. You couldn't
city like
they couldn't you couldn't hear what they were saying. And you couldn't see them anymore.
planes.
So that's the one where they're going around his like right
Yeah,
next
that's
to
like
Trail.
Black Mirror is pretty complex. So,
This is the
That's
game.
That's
This is what the
yes.
Catan looks like.
So it's like a resource management game.
You trade with other players. You try to get 10 points to win. 10 points, right?
Yeah, that's like the base game.
Yeah, and then but through that you like to build cities or roads or like certain conditions, like have the longest stretch of road. You know, like I said, I have like 5 pieces of road, and then Emily gets 6, so she plays another card, and then she gets the point instead.
There's
I'm
also
sorry, I'm in a restaurant, so some of these look like guacamoles.
Yeah. There's another one I played a lot. I think it's called Machi Koro or something like that. It's a similar type of resource game, but instead of just where you place it, it's just there are 4 different types, and you roll the dice to see what it is. Certain ones do certain things. Like for certain ones, the granary one, whenever someone rolls a 1 on the dice, anybody who has a granary will get a point, even if it's not their turn. Or the sun where it's like, oh, if you have the cheese factory and you roll a 6 in your turn, you get 4 points there of just a shoe. And you get a certain amount of resource cards.
Jerry, you guys ever heard of Omni Magazine? It's a science magazine.
I have
So back in like the day, they had their annual board game review. And the one we used to play was called Supremacy. And so it was like risk.
I've heard of it.
It's like risk, but you have a stock market. So you can sell off all your resources for cash, which will drive down the value in the stock market, because if you sell off 15 units, it drops at 15 units on the stock market. So instead of being worth 100, it's worth 10 after you sell. So anybody who's, you can use that strategy to break somebody up. Next move, if you know that they're wanting to get money because they're wanting to do something, you can fly people. You can fly your armies, or you can take them by boat, or you can march them. But it's pretty interesting. It's a long game. Yeah,
It's the gesticulation.
right. So Risk was always fun. The computer game Risk is fun, especially if you have 2 or 3 people, because you can do short versions and it gives you like an objective. You can just do the objective, and your objective isn't necessarily what your opponent's objective is.
It might be the same one, you don't know.
Usually it's like one person is like kill player 2, and player 2 would be like capture North America and Australia.
It's right. It's the first person to make so
Have you played Ticket to Ride? That's also a fun game.